So we have a massive update in the fight over the National Firearms Act. Yesterday, I told you guys in the video that we were approaching the expiration date of Judge Hendricks's 7-day stay on his judgment, and incredibly, the Department of Justice has decided to not seek a stay of that ruling, and also they have still not appealed this case or asked for the Fifth Circuit to stop this ruling. The deadline has now passed, and even more importantly, Representative Klein actually announced late last night that he received confirmation from the Trump administration that the DOJ will not be appealing this ruling. That means that the permanent injunction has now gone into full effect. And almost immediately after that happened, we saw something that has not happened in over 90 years in this country. Suppressors were transferred without going through the traditional NFA registration process. So let's break down exactly what happened, what some companies and plaintiffs like Palmetto State Armory and Silencer Shop are now telling their customers, and most importantly, why you need to understand your own state's laws before doing anything in relation to this ruling. So let's break down what is currently happening. Now, before we jump into this video, if you want to ensure that you keep getting updates on this topic and others and get news as this evolves, make sure to subscribe to the channel and also turn on all notifications to never miss these videos when I release them. Now, this all started after Congress reduced the NFA making and transfer taxes on suppressors, SBRs, SBSs, and AOWs, and they took it from $200 to $0. That immediately created a constitutional problem for the DOJ. Historically, the NFA's registration scheme has been justified under Congress's taxing powers, but Judge Hendricks in this ruling concluded that once Congress eliminated the tax on these items, the registration scheme and the penalties were no longer constitutional and they had no foundation. He therefore granted summary judgment to the plaintiffs and issued a permanent injunction against enforcement of the challenged provisions for those covered by the judgment. So that's important. His ruling is specific to specific provisions of the NFA and the specific items that are not taxed, and also it is covering specific plaintiffs in this judgment. However, on top of that, like I mentioned, he stayed the enforcement of his final judgment for 7 days from that entry. That temporary stay gave the DOJ 7 days to seek a stay pending an appeal and try to also hold that ruling. But as we stand currently today, the DOJ has not appealed this ruling yet. They still have time to potentially appeal this, but they have not done it yet. But more importantly, they have not sought a stay after that 7-day window. That means that the ruling has been allowed to go into full effect for the covered plaintiffs. Last night, GOA and Silencer Shop conducted suppressor transfers to AK Jesus himself, Brandon Herrera, and then Texas State Representative Wes Verdell. Almost immediately this morning, when the clock turned over after the stay had expired, GOA and Silencer Shop carried out suppressor transfers to those GOA members. These suppressors were transferred without filing a Form 4, without obtaining prior ATF approval, and without entering the suppressors into the National Firearms Registration and Transferred Records. And GOA and Silencer Shop didn't exactly try to hide this at all. They told the DOJ and the ATF exactly what they intended to do. Before the transfers occurred, this happened yesterday, they affirmatively notified the DOJ and the ATF of their intention to conduct these transactions once this day expired. And the government did not respond. It did not try to stop them. So as we sit here today on August 13th, Judge Hendricks's permanent injunction is in effect, and we now have actual suppressor transfers taking place pursuant to the injunction. And now we're seeing other plaintiffs also begin to implement this ruling. Palmetto State Armory was one of the other plaintiffs in this lawsuit, and PSA has now announced that the qualifying suppressor purchases at its South Carolina retail locations and by those South Carolina residents, that they can occur without the traditional NFA registration process. PSA says on their website that customers will complete a normal 4473 and a NICS background check, similar to how you purchase a rifle. But there is also something extremely important that you need to understand that all these companies are also trying to notify you about. Judge Hendricks did not issue a nationwide injunction protecting every gun owner in America. The injunction protects specific plaintiffs and people connected to those plaintiffs, including certain customers, members, and also FFLs. So that's also why in prior videos and in this video, I highly recommend checking out GOA or other 2A groups, become members of those to make sure you're also covered by this ruling. And so again, that's why PSA is currently limiting these suppressor sales to South Carolina residents and South Carolina stores, because there is another caveat also going on with this, which is what are the current state laws in regards to suppressors and SBRs. PSA specifically says it's not currently doing the same thing at its North Carolina or Georgia stores because of different state laws. And that brings up probably the biggest warning for this entire video and something you need to be aware of. This ruling does not erase state gun laws. Suppressors and SBRs are treated very differently from state to state. So just because somebody in Texas or South Carolina can legally do something right now under this injunction does not mean you can do the same thing if you live in some state or some location that has specific state laws in regards to suppressors, SBRs, or these items. Before buying a suppressor, building an SBR, or doing anything else based upon this ruling, you need to understand both whether you're actually covered by the injunction, if you're covered potentially based on the coverage of the plaintiffs, if you're a member of an organization like GOA, but also what are your specific state laws and what does it require. Also keep in mind, we are in completely new territory here with this ruling. We do not have a full understanding yet about how all of this is going to operate. As of right now, the ATF has not provided guidance. The DOJ has not provided guidance. They have not sent any type of information to FFLs on how this is going to operate, and they certainly have not sent out a general guidance letter to the entire public. So we're not entirely sure what is supposed to happen. There are a lot of nuances, not just with state laws, but the federal laws that are still in play, like the GCA, how this is all going to interplay with one another. And keep in mind, this is something that is unraveling. This is a law that's been in place for over 90 years. This is unraveling now. We're in uncharted territories, and we really don't have all the answers to the questions yet about how this is going to operate going forward. There's also important distinctions with short-barreled rifles. PSA says that it's not currently selling factory SBRs without the traditional Form 4 process because there are separate federal restrictions that Judge Hendricks did not enjoin in that ruling. This is also echoed by Silencer Shop and other companies as well, and other plaintiffs in this case. However, PSA says that there may be circumstances where a current GOA member who previously purchased a qualifying firearm from PSA can configure that firearm into an SBR without going through the traditional Form 1 process. But again, make absolutely sure that you understand whether you're covered, if you're covered by the lawsuit itself based on the plaintiff coverages, and whether SBRs are legal under your own state law before you do anything. So the bottom line is this: we did win this round. The DOJ did not appeal as of right now this ruling, and all indications are that they are not going to appeal this ruling. The Trump administration reportedly told Representative Klein that they are not going to appeal, and Judge Hendricks' permanent injunction is now in effect. Also, the first suppressors have already been transferred without traditional NFA registration, and companies like PSA and Silencer Shop are beginning to implement this ruling. However, again, I want to note this is not the complete nationwide elimination of the NFA. There are still questions about exactly who is protected, how different dealers will implement this, how existing state laws are going to interact with this ruling, and there are also questions still about how the ATF and the DOJ will actually respond. We also have questions about whether we will even get further guidance from them. Will they take action like Congress called for to expand upon this ruling beyond just the named plaintiffs, using their authority to apply this nationwide to everyone? What is that going to look like? We're also looking at whether specific red states that are currently excluded from this ruling, I believe 15 states still have state level suppressor and SBR restrictions. Again, this is outside of blue states like California, New York, and Illinois, and states like that just have outright bans. But those red states that have state level laws, are they going to move quickly to try to rescind those laws or modify them based on this ruling? So again, celebrate the victory right now, but understand this is now a very complex situation that we are kind of going to have to navigate. But again, we're in uncharted territory, and we're going to have to get answers and fill out some of these questions as we go. So again, check your state laws, make sure you're actually protected, and pay very close attention to what happens over the next several days, because I anticipate that we will get more information as more people go through this process. As some of these questions get answered, I will try to update you guys and bring you guys, those answers. I know that there's going to be a lot of questions about, well, can I do this specific thing in this specific state? Again, we don't have all the answers right now. We're going to have to navigate this together as we go through this process. But the fact remains that after more than 90 years of the NFA, we are officially in uncharted territory, and we did get a big win with this. And now we're seeing how this is going to play out. But again, if you want to continue to stay updated on this, get information as it unravels, make sure to subscribe to the channel. turn on all notifications to not miss these videos when I release them. But as always, thank you so much for all of your support, and never forget this nation was built by armed scholars, and this nation will be maintained by armed scholars.